Sometimes things don't want to work right. That's all it took. Okay. You know, sometimes you just got to unplug things and plug them back in, and they start working.
Something's wrong.
I got it fixed. Appreciate you. All right. So you guys can see the background. I was trying to make a cool entrance here with the shirt in the background and everything, and my audio equipment decided to mess it up. But we do have 100,000 followers over here on YouTube. So just want to say super humbled and grateful for you guys to take time out of your schedule to watch my stuff, engage with it, and provide great questions and feedback. I started doing this, I don't know. Thank you, my wonderful wife, the tea lady, always helping me out. We started this channel a little over 2 years ago. I guess it would have been, sometime around, well, I guess it was January of 2023. So a little over 2.5 years of putting out content on a regular basis, infrequent. Sometimes I miss a week here and there when we travel and do videos and stuff. So, it's probably not as consistent as it could have been, but I always show up for the lives, and I appreciate you guys doing the same. Again, none of this is possible without you guys. So just want to, give thanks and say I'm grateful, and I feel very blessed to have all the people follow that do. And just want to say thank you to you guys for, again, taking time out of your life to watch what I do and the content that I create. And yeah, it's just really cool. So I wanted to start off that way and say thanks, and we'll obviously keep it up the whole night. So celebration tonight on that deal. I guess you have to have it like for a week before you can apply for the plaque. I don't know how that works, but that's apparently the deal. So if and when we do get the plaque, I'll have it here on the desk, which would be awesome. So with that, we'll go ahead and hop into the questions here. I've been slacking on some of the super chats over the past couple weeks, not getting through everything. So I'm just going to jump into the questions. We did have the town hall earlier today in the Mastermind and go over a lot of different topics. I've got a video that's coming out on the ETFs and some of the regulation and what's been proposed to the SEC over there. And a lot of big things happening in the background. A lot of rough price action over the weekend, but it seems like we're recovering, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions on that tonight. So we'll go ahead and hop into it. We got Justin Kincaid. What's up, brother? He says, hey, Jake, the reverse carry trade, XRP ETFs, Tether spiral, and BlackRock throws in the ETF and we see 750. What happens to Bitcoin? Thanks for all that you do and your team do. Me and Uncle Danny enjoy the Mastermind. Wake up, Uncle Danny. I love that, dude. If Tether comes uncorked, if Tether really does come unpegged, which is what I think, I've kind of had to revise my thesis, because originally I thought there was going to be some type of sanction against Tether that was based on the stablecoin regulation. Obviously, that's not the case. They've given them a grace period to get compliant, somewhere between 18 months and 3 years. Just depends on, which side they kind of fall under. But with that, they do have a lawsuit that's open with Celsius over some Bitcoin that's locked up in that is on their balance sheet. And obviously, they can't remove that from the balance sheet while the litigation is ongoing. It's locked up, and so they'll determine who actually owns it at the end of that. The other reason that they could be sanctioned is, obviously, if there are transactions on the network that evade sanctions, for Iran and for Russia, there may be consequences along with that. And then there also could be, a situation where Epstein and those files come out, and maybe it's, in some capacity tied to Tether and Bitcoin for transactions there. Don't know. We'll see there. I think the more likely scenario at this point is that Tether does come unpegged if the reverse carry trade unwinds. And the reason for that would be corporate debt and bonds on their balance sheet. There's a portion of their balance sheet that is backed by corporate bonds and debt that's owed to companies. And if those companies were to go belly up, they're foreign, they're not US or domestic. A lot of people, speculate that it's Evergrande and the real estate market there in China. A lot of different things back and forth on that. So Not sure what it's going to end up being, but I do think that it is going to come unpegged. And if it came unpegged, and it has before, so that's what makes this a little bit more plausible than the sanctions. You might see a bank run on Tether, and if there was a large unwinding, a lot of people selling off Tether and their positions, exchanges, going illiquid because of the depegging. There's really not an arbitrage mechanism, like there was for UST and Luna, to be able to spiral it down. But I feel like there's something there that could cause a systemic event where Bitcoin could see 30, 40, 50, 60% to the downside. And what would be exacerbated there would be, now that there's ETFs, a lot of these people, and this has been proven, some of these people are here for some volatility. Okay. They've seen 20 or 30% down in a short period of time and been able to hold or buy more. But if you did have a negative narrative that came out publicly about Bitcoin and Tether alongside significant drop in price, you may get, just like we had an exacerbated move to the upside on Bitcoin once they launched the ETFs, and it for sure was. And even if you talk to Bitcoin people, they would tell you, this is unusual that we would have hit an all-time high before the halving. That's never happened in any previous cycle. The only constraint that's significant here that really would have caused that outsized gain and liquidity to move in would be the ETFs that were launched alongside that. So my speculation is, if we saw a significant downturn in the market and negative news correlated to that for Bitcoin and for Tether, then you could see people selling off in droves, and that would drive price even lower for Bitcoin if the institutions were liquidating from the ETFs in massive amounts. Just like they're buying in large amounts, they could liquidate in mass amounts too. So that's my concern there. What happens to Bitcoin? Again, I'm pretty confident in Saylor's thesis that it's 0 or a million. And if it's 0 or a million, and we see something that pushes it back below what it costs to mine each Bitcoin, the energy costs are pretty substantial at this point. I've talked to lots of miners, and they definitely have figured out some cheaper sources of energy. There is a benefit to Bitcoin's network on the energy side for the ability to turn up and dial back energy uses as that moves onto the grid. I'm all for it. I think that there's better options for payments and other things there. I think that there's a possibility that the Bitcoin miners get repurposed for something else, but so many of them run the ASICs at this point that are, specifically made for mining Bitcoin, like the stuff's etched into the chip. They can't really be repurposed like they could have been for the Ethereum miners, kind of parlaying that over to AI, which many of them did after the staking, kind of came about for Ethereum. A lot of those miners transitioned over to AI and other applications. So, but that's a lot of money and infrastructure just go to waste. I don't think that they would do that. So I'm torn is the real answer. I'm not sure where Bitcoin goes at this point. I do think that there's going to be a rotation of liquidity out of Bitcoin into the altcoins using the ETFs. Where does that leave Bitcoin over the long term? I don't know. There's a lot of people that believe in it and have a lot of it. We have clients that have a lot of it. I'm still, again, if I had to give you a percentage, I'm probably 70% to 0, 30% to a million is kind of where I sit on Bitcoin at this point. So 7 out of 10 times 0, 3 out of 10 times a million. We'll see which one of those it is. But I'm not certain one direction or the other. Justin, wake up, Uncle Danny. Appreciate you guys. Mr. Claver from Mark B. Thank you for the super chat. He says, the legend. Can you tell us about the 7% loans you're making available to accredited TWP members? When will they likely be available? Just onboarded a lot of XRP into the income fund. Awesome, dude. So I can't talk about specific products here publicly, but we have some strategic partners that we're looking at, bringing in that would significantly reduce the interest rates on the loans against XRP in particular, Bitcoin as well. Many of our clients are looking for liquidity. The interest rates currently are somewhere between 13 and 16%. Bitcoin can be a bit lower and the LTV a bit higher. XRP most of the time somewhere between 45 and 55 on the LTV, which is the loan to value. So, if you put up $200,000 worth of XRP, you could borrow roughly $100,000 worth of XRP, sometimes less, sometimes more, just depends on the partner. And again, the interest rate on that for XRPs, somewhere between 13 and 16%. For Bitcoin, the LTV is a bit higher, somewhere between 60 and 80%. And we would not suggest the 80%, but to each their own. And then in addition to that, the interest rates are a little bit lower there for Bitcoin. And again, that's just underwriting risk. It's a larger market cap by magnitudes from other ones. Bitcoin makes up 2/3 of the liquidity in crypto. We got a 3-point-something trillion market cap at this point. Bitcoin's $2 trillion of that. So that's why you're able to get that additional benefit there outside of other assets. So I'm hoping soon, this quarter is what we're looking at. I'm always a little bit more aggressive than our partners tend to act. And so I'm just going to hedge a little bit and say, hopefully this quarter sometimes. And that's for a lot of things. A lot of the things that we're working on, we're aggressively moving toward every single day at Digital Wealth Partners. Max Khan's our CEO over there and Chief Compliance Officer. They are an SEC registered RIA. They provide institutional custody for digital assets. They provide you a way to earn returns on your XRP, ability to borrow against your XRP, advisory on your digital assets and your holdings. We have certified financial planners on staff. So they're able to give you, an actual outlook of your financial picture and work with you, including your digital assets in that focus and, plan for your retirement and your lifestyle and generational wealth. Whereas, other advisors tell you to sell it or get rid of it and where they can't do anything with it. We are the only wealth manager in the US focused on digital assets exclusively. Now, hopefully in the next 30 days also, or this quarter, we should have traditional assets also. We have a lot of clients that have, stuff at Schwab and Fidelity and stuff held away in IRAs and 401ks. Then they would like a holistic spot that they can park everything and have, one unified structure that helps them manage their wealth. So we will be providing that for people. And then also, we can always be just an add-on. There's a lot of people that have a wealth manager that have been working with somebody for an extended period of time. You even might have a family office where you have a CIO that manages your real estate, private equity, other alternative investments, but they just don't know crypto. And you want to get into that world and make an allocation. And that's where we kind of plug in. We're plug and play. However, we're best suited to work with a client. We work that way. We're not there to replace anybody or take anybody's job or position. We just want to provide value and fit into your team the best way possible. So love that you're working with us. Thank you for being there. Excited to have you in the fund. Things, I got an update from our team today. Everything seems to be cooking along here in the second quarter of the funds being live. They did pay their first distribution to people in July. We will have a press release coming out about the total amount of dollar value invested in our fund. North of, I'll just say it, we'll have to be specific about the wording. Since quarter over quarter, we're at like $200 million worth of XRP in the fund. I think that was the way I'm supposed to say it. Oh, and I should probably say the disclosure. Nothing I say is representative of Digital Ascension Group or Digital Wealth Partners. These are my own opinions and are not associated with the opinions of the firm. And then in addition to that, nothing said here is financial advice, only for entertainment and educational purposes only. Always speak with your tax attorney, legal counsel, or financial advisor before making any tax, legal, or financial decisions. If you need those professionals that are licensed and have the credentials to be able to advise you in that capacity, you can always reach out to digitalfamilyoffice.io and we can provide you with those people. We have plenty of partners and people in-house that are credentialed and licensed to provide those services. So there's my disclaimer. But yeah, super excited to have you with us. And this quarter is what we're looking at for all the other fun stuff that we've been talking about. We got Evan C33. Thank you for the super chat. He says, Jake, I've seen a few Discord messages in the Mastermind. I've been trying to reach out and see if your team can help me license a few blockchain patents. Thanks for all your work. I think you messaged me, and unfortunately, I don't really have anybody that is a really good patent attorney for this stuff. We do have some people that we know that would do that. Other partners that work with patent attorneys and firms. I don't know what you're looking to spend. It is not cheap to get patents done. So I'm happy to make introductions to some other companies that we know that are filing some pretty, interesting patents around different technologies. There's a lot of stuff around the patent world that, again, I'm not an expert in, and so I don't claim to be. But we do have some resources. If you want to DM me in Discord, I can make an introduction to a separate group. There's two of them that come to mind that have filed a lot of patents, and I'm sure that they would make an introduction to a patent attorney to help you out. Be prepared to pay 6 figures or more, is all I'm saying. The IP game is not cheap. Jonathan Wetter, he says, legend. What's up, man? Could you make a short, simple video for friends and family or XRP investors, no deep tech, that I could share on social media? I want them to see the vision without me revealing too much about potential future wealth. Yeah, we have plenty of them. You could absolutely go to my YouTube channel. And again, thank y'all for the 100,000 subscribers. And you could type in how Jake Claver explains XRP to high net worth individuals. If you just Google that, it should come up with a video that I made probably about 6 months ago that goes over that exact topic. And it basically just breaks down what this technology does, why it's important, how it's going to change their life, and why it would need, some pretty substantial liquidity in these networks and protocols to be able to facilitate that. And it'll be things that they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I actually saw a post on Twitter earlier today. Another gentleman tagged me in it. Maybe I can find it over here. It was the exact situation that I describe pretty often, which was its interoperability between all the payment platforms, allowing you to send payments from Cash App to Zelle and other, payment apps, which that's an easy one, right? So if you could send money from Cash App to Zelle or, PayPal, right now you have to have the same application. Very similar to early on in the, early stages of the internet, where you had to have a Yahoo email address and I had to have a Yahoo email address to email one another, until they came up with the email protocol, which allows all emails to route and be sent between different providers, right? So similar to the payment infrastructure, that's the correlation or the analogy that I use pretty frequently that people tend to understand. Rob, what's up, Rob? Thank you for the super chat. He says, your lovely wife messaged me to thank me for all the messages to your post. I told her that finding you folks is life-changing. It's the least I could do. And according to my wife, I always do the least I can do. I love that, Rob. Thank you for all the support, brother. Thank you for being a moderator there in the Discord and for all the support and help over the years. Again, it's people like you. We wouldn't be in a position to be able to help a bunch of people without the support and all the stuff that you've done for the community. So kudos to you for standing up and helping people out there. If you guys do want to be part of the Mastermind, we took away free. It's no longer free, but it is still a low barrier to entry. If you want to use the code up here, Beyond Broke, the number 1, and then MO, it doesn't get you a free month in the group anymore, but it's $2 for your first month. And you can test it out, join the Discord, see what you think. Over 6,000 people there in the Mastermind. Again, just blown away by the amount of people that want to participate in that community and get the value that we're providing there. I will warn you 2 things if you do join. 1, it's going to be like drinking from a fire hose. There's a ton of information there. It's hard to get through all of it in a reasonable amount of time. and you are going to have to probably use the FAQ channel, use the search bar, go through all the pieces. People are super helpful there. If you ask questions in the general chat or over in the question and answer channel, they will help you out, and things, you can get into things a bit easier, but that search bar it's a godsend once you join the Discord and the Mastermind. And then second to that, if you do join and you get a message from me or multiple me's, it's not me. I will not message you when you join the Mastermind. I am diligently working every single day to make sure that we have the products and solutions and manage my team and create content and provide all the resources that my team needs to be successful. And I would love to just be able to sit there all day and DM everybody as they joined, but it is not me. So if you get a DM from me or somebody impersonating me, please block and report them. I guarantee it's a scam, and it is not me. So if you join, when you join, it's likely that you will probably receive some messages, and we're doing everything that we can to mitigate that. We've got some pretty high-level people on that right now, and we've exposed a lot of the problems, and we will be continuing to enforce action against people that are trying to scam people in the Discord. So anyway, you can DM me once you're in there. If you want to message me, I will answer it. It might take me a little while to get back to you, but I will answer there eventually. Two or 3 days most of the time. I go back in there and I've got a couple hundred messages and I just sit down and hammer them all out. But I will get to it if you DM me, but I will never DM you. So again, if you get something from me, please block and report. But we would love to have you there in the group. Ton of value, town halls, in-person meetups. Our next one is going to be in September. We'll announce the date there in the group this week, alongside what we're doing. We'll be in Wyoming later this month. No Mastermind meetup there, but we will be at SALT. I'll be speaking at SALT this year. And then we will be in Miami for Swell, and then we'll be going down to Futurist in November. October, we're going to be over on the West Coast. And we will have an event correlated with that for the Mastermind there in San Francisco and at the end of October. So again, kind of revving up these events here toward the end of the year, making sure that Mastermind members are getting out in force, meeting one another, shaking hands, looking each other in the eye, doing business together, and getting to meet people that have an aligned interest, right? And you can be at any level. You can be at social, carbon 1, carbon 2, doesn't matter. You can participate in real life, the IRL meetups that we have. We have more of those than any other community for the XRP community, maybe even in crypto. The only people I would say rival us are maybe the Bored Ape Yacht Club for their in-person meetups. So super excited to bring that. We do, private deals. We have a health share program. You have the ability to borrow against your XRP. And again, tons and tons of content in there to make sure that you are prepared for the liquidity event that we all know is coming and will likely continue with this bull market that we're in, to make sure that you make the most of it for you and your family and can, stack that generational wealth and protect it on the other side of this. We got Group 1, Gavin. He says, happy 100,000 legend. Whoop, regards. Appreciate it, man. Thank you for the super chat and the support. Again, super humbled. When I started the channel, 2.5 years ago, never would have thought. I mean, I would have thought about it. Everybody daydreams, but like this is super cool. So just want to say thank you. We got Wayne. What's up, Wayne? He says, we have so much good news in crypto space lately. Is there anything that you think is huge for the XRP army? Think we're going to have Monumental Day very soon. I agree with that statement. I would second that. ETFs. The video that I put out today is pretty interesting. If the SEC were to adopt the standardized pattern for how people were to file the ETFs, and those would just get approved, the approval process would move from 240 days down to 75 days. And you would see, a lot of these people that have already filed just make sure that they meet that criteria, and they would be immediately approved and pushed by the SEC. One of the big pieces for that is having your asset listed on the CME. You need a liquid futures market for institutions to hedge their losses for the spot ETFs in case there is volatility in the market. And so that's why you always see futures launch before spot. They did that with Bitcoin. They did it with ETH, the Solana ETFs in other jurisdictions. And then also here domestically for XRP, we have futures live. We've had that for a little while. And they had, spot and futures ETFs that were applied for at the same time. They launched the futures market. So it looks like everything's in place there for the ETFs to go. We're still waiting on Japan to do whatever they're going to do. Teetering on the edge over there. We went over that earlier today in the Mastermind as well. We've got KK Pond. He says, I was in Spaces a few nights ago. David Schwartz said we were about 8 months from institutional adoption. Trump also said a boom in 6 months out. That change your price? Are we still, $750 to $1,000 by December? So though, again, those targets that they're laying out there are predicated on, just things moving at the pace that they're moving now. That's not involving additional catalysts that could push things up or expedite things. There are some amendments on the XRPL that I'm watching for. That I think that's kind of what they're discussing, right? So you need liquidity pools, you need permission DEX, you need permission domains on the XRPL, borrow lend functionality. There's going to be a lot of things that come about in that period of time that you just mentioned over the next 8 months. We finally do have, some votes on some of the things that I talked to David Schwartz about at consensus in 2024, which was XLS 64, 65, and 66. They are currently up for vote there. So things don't seem to be progressing very quickly from the validators on those. It always takes some poking and prodding for people to update their infrastructure and make sure that they're running, at the scale that they need to before they can update and vote. But I do think that those will get passed in a reasonable amount of time, hopefully before the end of the quarter here. And so I'm still very optimistic, again, with the catalysts that I've talked about. And again, everything that I'm talking about, it's event driven. I can put a time frame on it. I'm confident that it happens before the end of the year. But if those things don't play out and there's not a cascading event where the dominoes fall like I proposed, it's not going to get to those high prices. Maybe it does get to 10, 13, 15, 25, $50 just from ETFs and some of the other volume on stuff. And then maybe we get a little pullback before we get institutional adoption and we see it skyrocket to those levels. I don't think that's going to be the case. Again, I think it's going to be a problem reaction solution type situation. Maybe they run it up to $10 or $13 and most people exit and it starts to fall back. And that's when, everything actually unfolds. I think that if they really don't want retail in, I don't think they really care. I mean, after the conversations I've had with people, I don't think they really care. But if there is a power or somebody that's, here against retail for some reason, that would be the way to get people out. The way to get people out would be to run it up to like $10 to $15. Most people would exit that aren't here for the long term or understand what it is. And they would make a lot of money. Like there's nothing wrong with taking profit. I just want to say that, a lot of people, obviously, we want to be able to borrow against it. We want to be able to use it to earn income. I've already put those things in place with Digital Wealth Partners. We're continuing to add, other opportunities, sat in institutional custody, mitigating taxes, still getting to have your cake and eat it too type stuff. But unless we get the reverse carry trade to unwind and Tether implodes and, all of these things culminate into the perfect storm to push the price to those levels, it's not going to happen. So, and I've talked about that before. People want to quote me on all the fun stuff. And that's fine. I'm fine with that. But it is event driven. It's not a time frame deal. But I am very optimistic based on the constraints that exist and where things are at with macroeconomics that those things do play out here in 2025. And I think 2026 and on for the next decade is just going to be gangbusters. I think with the culmination and all of these technologies converging, you're going to see, exponential growth in GDP, output, a lot of frictions removed, costs removed. There's just going to be a ton of technological advances, and the rate at which technology will progress from here is going to be mind-boggling for people. Actually, before we jump into shade spots still here, I want to know what you guys think on this one. You over here on TikTok too. My wife's watching. She'll get a kick out of this because she bet me. I don't think my son will ever drive a car. Okay. He's 8. And by the time he's 16, I am very confident that we will just have self-driving vehicles almost everywhere in the world. There may be like iRobot where you can still get like a motorcycle and go rogue and hide it in a garage and drive it. But for the most part, I think everything's going to be autonomous. That's a long time. That's almost a whole another decade away. And we've already had, self-driving cars for 3 years, really, that technology has existed. It's still kind of in its infancy. The LiDAR and the other stuff that they're using, I think will continue to get better and better and better. And they may mandate that at some point. There's a lot of people that die in car wrecks, sadly, every single day. And if everybody had an automated, autonomous driving car, I think it would be far less. I'm not saying there won't be any accidents, but I'm going to say there's going to be far less than there is with human error. People texting, people singing to the radio, people looking at their kid in the back seat, people not paying attention for whatever reason. So I could be wrong. Again, always, I'm happy to say when I'm wrong, but I do have discernment and I will make choices. And I do think that we are going to have, autonomous vehicles by time, and that's probably going to be the majority of vehicles by the time my son is, driving. So she thinks I'm wrong. She thinks I'm crazy, but I think the rate at which we will see technological advancement from this year forward is going to be exponential, and things are going to move much faster than people are used to in the progression and adoption of things over the next decade. Shade Spot, what's up, man? He said, congrats on the well-earned success, mate. It doesn't come easy given your cautiousness. I'm curious, is 100% of your XRP in custody, or do you leave a stash in a cold wallet? It is all in custody, sir. Well, I say that. I think I have maybe 10,000. Well, I have a couple. I have the portion that I escrowed outside custody. So not all of it's in custody. Early on in my progression for investment in digital assets, I did escrow a good chunk of XRP that would come back to me over time, just to make sure that if I completely messed it up, that I was still going to have something in the future. And I used the XRP toolkit to do that. So if you want to count that, that will come back to a cold wallet that I had 5 or 6 years ago. Well, not quite that, about 5 years ago. And I still got another 2 or 3 years worth of that coming back. We got the rare Pokemon. Interesting name. Appreciate Joe on the super set. They say, hey, Jake, as someone who holds 10,000 XRP, at what point would I be eligible to receive your private services or work with your team directly? Is there a portfolio threshold or other requirement? Well, so we work with people on the estate planning side, CPA, taxes, all of that stuff at pretty much any point. If you have the funds to be able to pay for the services, we can work with you, or we can recommend people for you to work with that are more cost effective than some of the solutions we have in-house. The people that we work with are, I posted earlier on social media, billionaires partner with experts, broke people get advice from the other broke people around them. And there's a big difference in that. Expertise costs money. Anybody that's at the top of their field in the top 10%, they're going to be paid well, and they should be, right? Like they've spent a lot of time aggregating the knowledge and skills and whatever's required to be the elite in whatever their field is. The riches are in the niches. Is that what they say? So just think about that. Again, we try to have a full spectrum of people that we work with that can, work with anybody. We kind of meet you where you are. If you're specifically talking about the wealth management side, our current thresholds are 100,000 XRP or $500,000 in portfolio value. As things continue to progress, we will likely, things progress at the rate that I think they're going to, we'll likely move that up to 20 million at the minimum. And that'll be your total portfolio, including digital assets on the family office side and for the wealth management. Those that are in the mastermind, it'll be substantially less than that. We want to, make sure that that group in particular has the opportunities to work with our group, even if, things progress a little bit slower for them or they have a smaller allocation. So again, we're always going to take care of people in the mastermind, but for people outside, that are just looking to work with us on the other side of price appreciation, we're likely going to move that threshold to 20 million. And again, that's kind of the point where you'd be looking at all the other tangential services that we provide with bill pay, accounting, tax advisory, estate planning, insurance, all the stuff that you would want if you were going to structure your stuff to be able to last, another century and protect your family for the next 5 generations. Hey, thank you for the super chat. We have, I'm going to butcher your name, Fumeza Mahalo. Probably going to mess it up. Sorry. Thank you for the super chat, though. I really do appreciate it. They say South Africa will probably realize your service in later years. What is your recommendation? Could BB assist if I set up a company in a couple of the jurisdictions you have there? We do have a couple South African clients that we work with. And so it just needs to be a corporation. So if it's in either one of those jurisdictions that you've mentioned there, happy to work with you as long as you pass, KYB, which is know your business and not a terrorist, you're not money laundering, you're not on the sanctions list, all the fun stuff that they look for, which I don't expect that you would be if you're commenting on my YouTube video. So probably good. But yeah, love to work with you in that capacity. And it would be DWP, Digital Wealth Partners. And again, our RIA can manage assets for anybody globally. The only caveat is that, there's 2, you need to have it inside of a trust or some other wrapper, like a retirement account. And then in addition to that, it does need to be, north of the thresholds I mentioned before, 100,000 XRP or over $500,000 in current value for your digital assets. Jorge, he says, congratulations, legend. Well done, well deserved. Greetings from Greece. Thank you, dude. What time is it there? It's early or late, however you want to look at it. Thank you for, staying up and the support and the congratulations. I really do appreciate it. I need to make it out to Greece. My wife and I were talking about sailing like the Mediterranean and, like going to different ports along there. Definitely want to make it to Greece and see all the monuments and everything there. I think that'd be really cool. We got I Am the Key. I like the name. It's cool. He says, Jake, my guy, what do you think the narrative will be when XRP flips Bitcoin and ETH? Thanks for all that you do. Everything that I've talked about. I think that it's going to be a systemic crisis, a liquidity crisis, and they are going to run XRP up and flip both of those and go way beyond that. I think you could see, trillions in market cap in a very short period of time. People would have a hard time, again, comprehending that type of move to the upside, because in traditional markets, you would need that amount of liquidity to actually move into something. Whereas in this market, the total available supply the total supply and the total available supply are 2 very different things. So I think that there's going to be some friction that comes against Bitcoin and Tether. I don't know what that's going to be. That's my guess. And then you'll see a rotation from the Bitcoin ETFs into the XRP ETFs when the time is right. Everybody's like, what about the case? And why haven't they done the ETFs? And like, they're delaying everything. You're right. They are. And it is going to be to roll it out all at the exact right time to be able to mitigate a crisis. And that'll be the narrative. And that's why XRP is going to soar. Shade Spot, he said, you've mentioned that HBAR is your number 2. But when your forecast about ROI for these prices, XLM kicks HBAR's butt. What are we missing here? So HBAR has fixed fees on the network in dollar versus XLM is going to be paid in XLM. Again, it's a small amount, just like XRP. HBAR does settle the transactions on Hashgraph. I think the discrepancy is in the time frame, right? So I think XLM is probably, it's going to be one of the two. I think HBAR could move more aggressively to the upside versus XLM.
Tell TikTok you're live.
I'm alive.
No, it's live.
Oh, it is TikTok. I'm live. What do I need to tell them? Why? Oh, my lip.
No, not that.
Sorry about the lip. Look, I'm trying to fix this thing. I've got my chapstick. Look, like it's part of having big lips out in the sun. I'm sorry. I'm doing the best I can. So why would one be above the other? I think over the long term, HBAR's price appreciation exceeds XLM. And the reason for that is I think that XLM has a cap around $1,000, whereas HBAR I think would continue higher because it'll be the bedrock for Web3 and the security of data, really at scale. It's how you're going to own your own data and be able to participate in the economy and be able to leverage your day-to-day transactions or interactions or attention that you give to things and be able to earn income off of it. So if you own your own data and you have a decentralized identity on HBAR and the security on that doesn't allow other parties to just take that data from you, which is what currently exists today in Web 2. You're going to do all the things that you're going to do anyway, right? Like you're going to search the stuff you're going to search, you're going to go to the places you're going to go, you're going to eat, you're going to do all the stuff that you do. But if you owned all that and then people could pay you to market to you, that's what I think HBAR will provide. And I think that's the benefit globally over the long term is as everything moves on chain, owning your own data and having that security and privacy is going to become paramount for pretty much everyone on the planet in order for them to participate in the Web3 economy. And so that's how I think about HBAR and what its future use case is, whereas XLM is peer-to-peer payments, but it needs to be able to facilitate micropayments. And so in that capacity, based on the code, it would be limited to 3 decimal places to the left of the decimal and 4 decimal places to the right. So, highest value I can think of, and I could be wrong, this is just in my mind, would be $999, 9.9999, right? So effectively $1,000 would be the cap on XLM. And again, would love to be wrong on that. I would love people to make a lot more money than I think. But again, that's why HBAR is my number 2, because I don't think it's capped in the same capacity that XLM is over the long term. And again, when I talk about stuff, sometimes it is predicated on short-term price moves. Obviously, I'm positioned in XRP, but it's also the long-term price appreciation for XRP is why I'm there as well. I would be able to leverage that and then buy a bunch of HBAR or XLM and then, service that debt with some of my other XRP that I put to work and some of the yield and return bearing strategies that DWP has. And we, again, I was saying this in the mastermind earlier, I'm highly confident that we are going to be the first institution that provides institutional DeFi to our clients and access for retail in that capacity. Obviously, we're not dealing with, anyone but high net worth individuals for the most part. But that may change over time, especially as these things become more robust and people may not require, the white glove service. I'll give you an example as why we've started where we are and why we're just not opening it up to everyone. You look at the Tesla Roadster, okay? There's a reason that people start with the high-end product first, and then they democratize it as time goes on. That's how we're working this out, just so you guys know. One, you have more money up front to be able to actually stabilize your business and get entrenched and build the things that you need to. 2, dealing with, I'm just going to say this, It may offend some people, and that's okay. But most of the time, wealthy people are easier to deal with than somebody that doesn't have as much money. And I don't think it's because one's nicer than the other. I think one has a lot less stress than the other. And they also know that getting emotional or getting upset about things doesn't solve problems. Communicating does. Communicating solves problems. And some of our large clients communicate very well. They're not as aggressive. They don't send an email to every single email that we have all at one time. They just pick up the phone and call their advisor or have a direct contact and say, hey, need to talk to you, pretty urgent. Please contact me when you can. And they'll flag the email as important. And they'll email the one person that they're supposed to email, and they will get back to them very quickly. Instead of spamming all of the emails that we have across the company. So anyway, just again, dealing with different people, and everybody's got a different personality, but it's been my experience that a lot of the time, people that already have substantial wealth tend to just be a little more easygoing and less stressed. And so I think because of that, the ease to work with them is just a little bit easier. Easy. Keep saying it over again. But that's, kind of part of it too. And then over time, we'll disseminate the service down. And as we're able to scale systems, infrastructure, and technology, it'll become much more available to everybody else. But we have to start somewhere, and ideally, be able to fund all of the rest of it and stay in business. We got Beta G. They say, what do you think is the most profitable event happening this year at the May spike of XRP? Most probable event happening this year at the May spike of XRP. The one you're most confident will happen this year. Probable event happening this year. That May spike. Sorry, I was reading May like a month. It's late. The whole domino theory, like I wouldn't continue to talk about the domino theory at the level that I do if I wasn't extremely confident that that's going to play out here in 2025. Again, it could take longer than that, but that's my time frame that I'm sticking to. KK Pond, thank you for the super chats, man. He says, actually, we already went over this one. It always kicks me up in the chat here a little ways. So we'll scroll on down and make sure we're getting to all the super chats for you guys. And again, appreciate you guys taking time out on a Monday night to hang out with me. Sonny says, so I missed buying the dip because my bonus came in the form of an out-of-state paper check. The irony amazes me. Should I go all in on XRP or diversify tomorrow when my funds are available? Can't give you financial advice, Sonny. I wish I could. I can only tell you what I'm doing, and then you make your own decisions. So I continue to buy XRP even at $3. It is, I'm trying to get rid of this person over here on TikTok. Still think the ROI is there versus other stuff in the short term. And that's why I continue to dollar cost average, even at these, higher price levels. I'm still buying that, and I'm not diversifying. So again, you do you. There's a lot of things that I think will do very well. And again, I talk about all of them. We've made videos on HBAR and XLM, on Ondo. I interviewed Wormhole the other day. W token is what they have. That's a governance token. I don't know about that one on significant price appreciation, but we'll see. All these networks, there's going to be a huge move higher across the board. A rising tide lifts all boats, right? But for me, I think the shining star of all of that is going to be XRP. And the other reason around that is liquidity provisions, the ability to borrow and margin against it and earn returns with it now. These other assets, I can't. Like as an example, even if I wanted to with XLM, you only get 30% margin against that. They're not going to underwrite it. XRP, you get 80% against. And yeah, there may be some DeFi contracts with, Sorban and some of the stuff over there, but there's too much risk in that for me. There's counterparty risk in smart contracts. It's not insured. There's just, the safest way for me to feel protected and benefit my family over the long term is to continue to aggregate that specific asset. And it's also the only one that I have the highest conviction on. I'm absolutely certain about. So again, I appreciate the question. I wish I could give you a more helpful answer, and but all I can do is give you what I'm doing. Dr. Denise, hey ma'am, thank you so much for the super chat. You're always so wonderful with the 1111. She's in carbon too. She's an awesome lady, for you guys that don't know. She says your devotion to financial education, community, humility, and service stands out. Cheers to you and the mastermind, present, future success of XRP Army. Many of us all have great health. May all of us have great health, prosperity, and lead with service. Congratulations to the 100K, 1 million next. Let's go. Thank you, Denise. Yeah, that was my business partner, Max, called me this morning, and he said, we hit 100K. And I was like, yeah, we get a little celebration. And then he's like, all right, so what about the million? What I've noticed about extremely successful people is they are tenacious, and they do celebrate milestones, right? Sometimes it's with a trip. Sometimes the other cool thing about being an adult and playing in business or media or whatever your thing is you like when you're a kid, like the league buys trophies and gives you a trophy if you win. In business, you buy your own trophies. This is what I've learned from really successful people. They will, like Kevin O'Leary, every time he does a big business deal, he buys a watch with a portion of those proceeds. And then that watch is a direct representation in his mind of that accomplishment. And when he wears it, he thinks about that deal or that win that he had in his life. So it doesn't have to be a $50, $100, $200 million watch, right? But I would encourage you to do little things like that for yourself, because if you continue to just beat yourself up like you're not enough, eventually you will give up. You do need to celebrate those small wins and the milestones. And so, but again, like as an adult and, just playing in your own life, you're the main character, you have to buy those trophies for yourself. So, one of my previous business partners I don't do business with anymore bought himself, who's the guy that did Star Wars? People are going to give me hell for this. I'll think of it in a little while. The director for Star Wars. Anyway, he bought a signed, autographed poster of the original Star Wars that he had signed, and that was his gift to himself for the first. I think he made $100,000 in 1 month. So just stuff like that. When you get those thresholds, I do think it is good to celebrate a little bit. But again, the people that are super tenacious and very successful, as soon as they crest one mountaintop, they're already looking at the next one. Robert, what's up, man? He said, hey, Jake, just notarized the LLC. Question is, how can Trump put no cap gains on U.S. cryptos without causing a rotation out of equities and crash in the stock market? That's a great question, Robert. Well, so this may surprise you. So Kevin O'Leary has talked about digital assets or crypto being the 12th sector of the S&P because they are technology based, right? And so with these ETFs and companies that are rolling out the different uses and protocols and building things, I agree with him. I think that this will be the 12th sector of the S&P. And so, especially if you can do in-kind and in-kind contributions and redemptions out of the ETFs, I think that's a way that you could actually prop up the U.S. stock market. I think there'd be a lot of liquidity that moved into those indexes. We are working at things at DWP to make sure that we're mitigating taxes. So right now, if you were to contribute to an ETF with your digital assets, that would be a taxable event. So you would be swapping that for shares in something else, even though it's an in-kind contribution, unless you were redeeming the exact same crypto. you're going to have problems. So, with that, I think a lot of people may be hesitant, especially if they have a low cost basis, to contribute to those things. But that would be a way that you could margin your crypto very easily if you were participating in an ETF and the underwriting on that was, through Schwab or Fidelity or one of these other clearinghouses and or one of the exchanges or brokers. They would lend you a line of margin against that you can then take and put into other stocks and do other strategies and things with. And that's what a lot of wealth managers will do. I do think that, as that comes about, they're probably going to try to incentivize their clients to contribute their crypto in kind into these ETFs. And then that would allow them to manage it. That would allow them to margin it and then take that liquidity and put it into other things and other strategies that they could make money on. But it's going to saddle their clients with tax implications, right? So these are all the things that I'm like wargaming with in the back of my mind, making sure that we're staying ahead of the curve on, thinking through and making sure that, we have the best of the best solutions before these investment banks do and before other advisors do. So that's kind of my guess there is there's going to be some incentive for people to participate in the stock market with their digital assets, and that liquidity would then be reappropriated across other investments with margin drawn against the ETFs to be able to do that. But no cap gains, I think it's only going to be no cap gains if you're using it to transmit value or settle transactions in the protocol to do business. That's the only way it makes sense in my mind. When I was playing with my script and using the AI and LLMs to put together the video for the Japanese video that I just did for the reverse carry trade and XRP as a liquidity buffer, one of the things that it talked about was there in that jurisdiction, they would have to move it to no cap gains on XRP in particular, but only in that specific application. So I think if it's used as a capital asset or an investment, you're probably still going to have to pay taxes on it. So, we'll see. I would love for it to be tax-free, but I'm with you. I think it would cause a lot of people to liquidate other things and move into that if it were that beneficial. We got Tyler. He says, legend. What's up, man? ISO 2002 rolls out November 22nd, and Swift is changing. What does that mean for XRP? Swift is a messaging layer, and it will need to adopt a settlement layer if they want to move to real-time settlement. They have two options for that, which is RippleNet and R3, and both of those just so happen to settle through XRP. So not really over-concerned about it. Pretty confident. And again, so confident it's the only thing I hold. So Mr. Axide says, legitimate question, $10,000. How are your governments going to address the massive amount of wealth gained, such as Brad Garlinghouse, several billion XRP, that's 30 to 40 trillion, tied to a single individual? I have no problem with that. I don't understand why everybody else gets up in arms about that. If you created that much value for the world and unlocked that much value for the world, and it's not 30 or 40 trillion dollars. Brad has, maybe 5 or 6 billion XRP. So if he's got 5 or 6 billion at 10,000, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is 30 or 40 trillion. There's going to be trillionaires in our lifetime that are publicly available. There's already lots of trillionaires, just so you know. They are not publicly transparent. Saudi Arabia has multiple trillionaires. They aren't talked about. They stay in the background. There are families in Asia that have way more wealth than any one individual or family should probably have. There's others in the Mediterranean and also others in South America and in the Caymans that have similar levels of wealth that nobody knows about. These people aren't public facing. As an example, I posted the other day There was an article that was put out about the top 10 most highest market cap private companies. Off the rip, they didn't even have the #1 company on there, Koch Industries. If you want to go look that up and see what that's actually worth, it's not on there. It beats Elon, it beats SpaceX, it beats all these other companies that have raised a bunch of capital and use VC and all this other stuff. It's been around a long time. They're in the oil industry. They're very private, not public facing. They do not draw attention. Same thing with Panda Express. Panda Express is worth roughly $278 billion. Not on the list. Should have been #2 or #3 on that list. Not even there. So that's my point. Like, I think people just have this perception that Bezos and Elon and these people that are worth, hundreds of billions are the richest people in the world. They are not. Not by a long shot. They are a gnat on some of these families behind. Okay. And I know that's hard to fathom. You look at the Queen of England and that family, their total net worth across all, the jurisdictions that they rule, close to $600 trillion. And I mean, you have a point here. You said, how are governments going to address that? They are the government over there. I don't think that they're going to have a problem with it because a lot of them are going to participate in the upside on this too. We got Weston. What's up, man? Thank you for the super chat. He says, are your trading strategies live for earning yield without selling XRP? Returns, not yield, returns, but yes. Also, any 50K minimum positions in the near future? If not, what's the minimum dollar value to start working with DAG? It's $500,000 in current portfolio value for digital assets is where we start working with clients. These are institutional options that you're not going to get access to normally unless you have at least 25 million liquid to put in them. Those are our partners. We work with them. We have, again, over $200 million being put to work in these funds and opportunities that we've put together through the hedge fund that we have. So, yeah, just wild. Again, super blessed to see it's surprising, but it's also not surprising, right? Because I've put these together in a way exactly how I would want them. You don't have to give up the XRP in a way that it's, you're having to sell it or deal with the tax implications. Stays in institutional custody. It's reflected on the counterparty's exchange. We do everything that we can to mitigate any potential losses. And we trade it in market neutral strategies that have proven track records of 20 to 40% per year. And normally I would be very hesitant of those types of numbers. I'm skeptical, right? You look at Munisy, it was like 912%. Anything like that's probably fake. Obviously was a problem. Otherwise they'd still be here. But we talked to Doppler Finance. Those guys are cool. 2.5 to 4.5% per year. Yeah, that's believable for sure. 20 to 40 is still I don't know. But hedge funds have been historically producing that. There's many hedge funds that do 30% a year. And that's why family offices and other high net worth individuals place their capital with them because they get outsized returns versus any other option. And they have very smart people working for them. They build proprietary algorithms that are actually capable of generating that type of return with very low downside risk. And that's what we have, right? So we're not, we're getting 80% margin against XRP, maybe more here in the near future, depending on our partners. And then, they're trading 50 or 60% of that line of credit in the strategy. So if they're making, we'll call it on the low end, 20% a year, we're looking at around 8% for our clients, either in cash or in kind in the two strategies that we have there, for accredited investors. So that's the other caveat there, accredited investors. And, in the future, we will have yield bearing products, but it'll be much, much lower returns. Somewhere between 2 and 4% probably to start out. And that's annual. So kind of like a CD at the bank or a money market, but you can just park it there and it'll be paying you, which is what I know a lot of people want. So if you can have institutional custody, don't have to sell your XRP, and you're making, a little bit of jingle in your pocket every single month off of it, I think a lot of people will be very happy with that. And we did drop it down to 50K XRP multiple times. Unfortunately, that's not anything that we'll be offering moving forward. We will wait for price appreciation to happen. And then, based on how I think price is going to move, a lot of people will be able to work with us in a very short period of time. Honest Aim, what's up, man? Thank you for the super chat. He says, legend. Gosh, feels we are so close. Please go over things that do and do not, and not do. Thanks for all that you do for us in the Mastermind. Raising a toast to 5,500 Mastermind and over 100,000 YouTube. Cheers. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Wild to experience. And again, just super grateful for all you guys taking time out of your life to come on here and watch this and enjoy the content and ask great questions. Wouldn't be possible without y'all. So to do and not to do. Sit on your hands. It's probably the best advice I can give people. Especially when you come into a lot of money, until you get comfortable with having that wealth. Probably sit on your hands. Don't splurge. Don't get emotional. Don't make poor choices. We had a call the other day and we talked about, I actually went out to dinner with a very wealthy individual. He structured, multiple billion-dollar deals out in Silicon Valley. Been in the game a long time. Worked with Apple and Bank of America back in the day. And we were talking about things, and he said, sometimes it's best to just wait 24 hours. If you're ever caught up in emotion or thinking through something and it's weighing on you, or you feel like you urgently need to make a decision, sometimes it's best to sit with yourself and reflect on that and make sure it's the right thing. And if 24 hours you still want to do it, cool. But a lot of the time, after some time passes, you may not have that same urgency to get something done. So those would just be a few things. Take your time, educate yourself, make sure you're positioning yourself well. This is going to sound like, shilling our own services, and you don't even have to use us. There's plenty of attorneys that you could work with out there. I would recommend most people set up at least an LLC. If you've got, north of $50,000 to $80,000 in crypto, structure a company to manage those assets. If those are in your personal name and you're selling them or you're using to produce income, you're going to be stuck with the taxes. And I'm just like everybody else. I hope the IRS just completely goes away. Believe me. But you still want asset protection, and you're going to get that if you set up a Wyoming LLC and it's got the corporate veil intact. You've done all the corporate governance and the filings and everything the way that you should. You're doing the meeting minutes, and board resolutions, and you've issued the stock and all the stuff that we work with our paralegal group to do. If you've done all that, you're going to get a lot of protections. You get charging order protection there in Wyoming. So if somebody sues you personally, they won't be able to get those assets. Very similar to a trust. You're not going to get the probate protection that you would with a trust with this LLC, but it's immediately going to have some creditor protection if you've done it the right way. And you can do things to amplify that. You can put the first lien against the company by yourself, so that if somebody else comes to sue you, you get the assets before they do. A lot of things we structure that way. You can put minority interest on the cap table, add people to the bank accounts. There's a lot of things that you can put in place to make a company far less valuable, one, and two, mitigate the risk of anybody being able to take anything from you or freeze your bank accounts. So we work with people to do all of that and more. Establish the company, move your assets in there without any tax implications, set things up the right way to manage your digital assets, pay yourself, mitigate taxes, and also have the most flexibility on the other side of price appreciation to establish your estate, your trust, and all the other stuff that people want to put together. Insurance policies, buy large toys, all the fun stuff, right? So I would say that if you haven't, set up your LLC, I would encourage you to do that. Again, you can work with any attorney. I would not recommend doing LegalZoom if you're going to do it that way. If you want to work with us, I'm 99.9% sure we're the cheapest option out there for everything that we provide, which includes the EIN, Articles of Organization, Certificate of Good Standing, the annual report for your LLC, registered agent, the template for the operating agreement. Most Attorneys are going to charge you somewhere between $1,800 and $2,500 just to draft that documentation specific for the language that we have in there. You get that just as part of the whole package with us. We're working, and then we get the corporate veil program also, where you're going to make sure that you're maintaining all the stuff to protect your assets and mitigate the risk of a lawsuit and loss on your digital assets. A virtual office. And then in the near term, hopefully we've negotiated something where we'll spin you up a bank account in the near future. I'm hopeful for that this quarter. In the next 30 days is what we're targeting. So literally everything end to end possibly that you could want for your company to manage your digital assets, structured the right way. So it's not a trading company. It's not a crypto company. It's a holding company in Wyoming that manages your alternative investments with a specific allocation to crypto. The NAICS code on this is 551112 or 551114. Again, we've been doing this for years. We've set up more than 3,000 corporations for people to make sure that they're mitigating this risk and established properly so that they can take full advantage of this wealth transfer. So if that sounds like it would be something you would want, you can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF 50OFF DAG LLC. That's 50OFF DAG LLC or 50OFF DAG LLC, and that's at digitalfamilyoffice.io. So again, do everything for $2,000 if you use that code, or you can go to an attorney and it's probably going to cost you, if you do it the right way, somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000. Jackie, they say, is Trump trying to force a rapid unwind of the reverse carry trade with oil, Iran sanctions, Russia imports? ChatGPT said rapid unwind could cause XRP to crash as low as 40 to 70 cents for a few days, weeks before price appreciation. Jackie, or Jackie, not sure which one. And I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. It's not an excuse. I apologize. I agree with you. I do think that he is trying to push that along, but I think it's because there's a significant interest for Trump in XRP and Elon and everybody else that's involved. And I think that'll become apparent as things kind of transpire. As we kind of roll over to this new financial system where the U.S. is still in the majority of control. If you don't innovate and disrupt yourself, somebody else will. And I think Trump knows that. I think the powers that be, know that. And so that's what they've done with these digital assets and XRP in particular, is they've disrupted themselves to make sure that they were still the leader. We got Riley. They say, thank you for the super chat. I followed you for a while now, and you've shared information with lots of folks. Keep up the great work, legend. Thank you so much for the kind words and the support and being here, and for the super chat. I really get a lot of fulfillment from this. I enjoy being on here in the lives, answering questions, interacting with you guys. We do a lot of it in the Mastermind every Saturday and every Monday. We have a Carbon 2 call on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. for about an hour. I'm creating content the other nights. I'm doing podcasts the other days. I sleep when I can. I try to spend some time with my family when I can too. So thank you guys again for the super chat, the support, and the kind words. Randy, what's up, man? He says, hey, Jake, wanted to say thank you for what you do. Connor and Stefan were great in getting things set up in the fund. Thanks again for working hard to build some awesome stuff. Looking forward to the future. Absolutely, dude. Thank you for participating and trusting us, working with us. Again, my team and the employees that we have and everybody that's working together to create this, it's not possible without those guys. I'm one guy. I'm one person. And the amount of work that our team puts in on a regular basis just blows me away. The after hours calls, the emails, the weekends, they work as hard as I do. And it's really cool to have running mates like that, and everybody sees the vision and they're able to execute on it. So thank you for the flowers, and I will absolutely pass them on to Connor and Stefan. For y'all that don't know, Connor is Mickle. Mickle is our main wealth advisor, one of the main wealth advisors over there, Digital Wealth Partners. That's his day job. He moonlights as Mickle, but he's Connor to us. We got Vlad's family. They say, is David Schwartz leaving Ripple? If so, what happens going forward with him? Also with XRP, being seeing a lot of things lately about his post. So Ripple, so David doesn't actually work at Ripple. Just so you guys know, Ripple, he is contracted as their CTO, but he is not actually a formal employee of Ripple. And I think the reason for that is Ripple employees. Actually, you know what? Hugo did state that Ripple employees were able to participate on the flare drop, but I heard that they weren't. So I don't know if David, did that, positioning himself that way so that he could participate in the next Ethereum, because that's his thing, is don't miss the next Ethereum, because he sold his Ethereum at $1, $40,000 worth of Ethereum at $1 to put a roof on his house. That's probably the most expensive roof of anybody's in the world at this point. What's 40,000 times 3,000, whatever that ends up being. Very expensive roof. So his motto is don't miss the next Ethereum, and I think that may be a portion of why he's in the position that he is there. But if he does, that's okay. All of these people are going to move on eventually, right? So to Brad's getting up there. I don't think he's lost the dog's not lost the fight yet. There's still a lot of fight left in that dog, is what I'm trying to say. I think Brad's probably around through 2030, and then he's out. You've already got other people that are sacking it up. I know Bob wants to retire and move on with his life. Many people that were there in the early days of Ripple have already retired in some capacity. So, David's going to do that at some point too. I mean, he was patenting stuff back in 1988. That's a long time ago. It's about 40 years ago in just a few years. So he's been in the game a long time. I think he deserves a little rest if he wants to take it. I'm not mad at him. And I think everything that they wanted to accomplish with Ripple is really pretty much done at this point. I think it's going to continue to scale. It's a global corporation. They've got the market penetration and adoption. So again, excited to see him maybe moving on to the next chapter if and when that happens. Sean Side says, hey, legend. Thank you for the super chat, Sean. He says, catching you from the beach this week. Congrats, dude. That sounds awesome. The dip allowed me to get a point I wasn't sure I'd make it to. Thanks for all that you do here and in the Mastermind. Can't wait to be part of DWP soon. Awesome, dude. Excited to have you working with us. And again, thank you for the kind words. And let me know how the beach is, man. I'm jealous. I'm headed up to New York next week on Monday to speak with Ritesh, co-founder of XDC. Him and I are going to be on a panel. They're Crypto Mondays. So a week from today, we will not have the live. This will be my last Monday for a couple weeks. So hopefully you guys are here and enjoying it. But I will be up there with them next Monday in New York speaking on that panel. And I'm sure we'll get it filmed and put it out for you guys too. So I think it'll be a good one. Excited to be up there and doing that. And shout out to Ken Chapman for the invite on that. Group 1 Gavin says, what's up? He says, you're incredible, bro. Thanks for showing your humility last week and talking about swinging hard. Rings so true to me. I'm all in, swinging like mad, mate. Love your authenticity. I appreciate that, man. So for those who weren't here, a lady had asked me, what I would tell a 14-year-old that was invested in XRP, and I shared the story about my dad and watching him miss out on American Airlines, and he had a visceral feeling that they were going to get bailed out, and if he had taken that trade or swung at that, he would have retired much sooner and probably had a much different life and outcome. He might have lived longer. So, just stuff like that. You only get so many fat pitches in your life. When I say a fat pitch, I mean like you've wound up, you see the ball coming, it's right down the middle, and you know that you're going to just knock it out of the park. You can see it before it happens. That doesn't happen very often. And if you're here, if you're invested in these assets, you have that opportunity, and you've executed on it. So good on you for taking action and swinging because that is what life's about. That's where winners are made. That's where the success happens, is when people take a risk, even though they may not even think it's a risk. Like, they may think it's an assurity. And sometimes people swing at stuff and they miss things that they thought was a sure thing. But you're not ever going to get anywhere if you don't. You're going to fail, and 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 then you're going to win. And when you win, the win is going to be so far outsized to all of the losses. You watch these people that seem like an overnight success, and they spent years falling on their face, getting laughed at, getting told that they were crazy, being humiliated or made fun of, picked on, told no because, somebody doesn't think that it's going to work. Walt Disney pitched, I don't know how many times before he actually got somebody to invest in what he and his vision was. And now look at it, right? And that's so true of many entrepreneurs, right? And a lot of times the wealth is made in business. Again, this is an investment that anybody can get into. What we're going through right now is the opportunity of the next 5 generations. There's not going to be anything like this. Even AI, like, there's a lot of upside in AI. There's a lot of upside in companies. We've invested in stuff that I can see going 20, 50x. You get in at a $25 million valuation and it exits at a $10 billion exit in 2 to 5 years, if it's a quantum company or AI or, something progressive. But that's still nothing in comparison to the opportunity to invest in these digital assets that could be tier 1 collateral in the banking system and transmit value for the next 1,000 years. It's never happened before, and I don't think it'll ever happen again. This could be an opportunity in, again, the next 1,000, 2,000 years type thing, which sounds crazy. Like, when I say that, I know how that sounds. On that, I need to get the rest of these super chats here before we run out of time. But a couple years back, I brought on Matt, our CIO, Matt Schneider, and I went to dinner with him and his business partners up in New York when I was up there. And older gentlemen, very successful, done very well in their careers. They swung, and they connected a couple times. And when I told them that in particular, I said, this is an opportunity of my lifetime. Like, this is the biggest opportunity of my lifetime. They were like, you're going to get some more of those. It seems like that, but it's not. You're going to have other ones that you'll be able to, knock down later if you miss this one. And I could not impress upon them that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, or once in multi-generational opportunity. And for me to tell them that, like, they have so much more wisdom and experience than me. I felt silly, trying to convince them of that. But as time has gone on over the last year and a half, I think they may, I haven't talked to them in a little bit, but I think they're starting to come around on that. I think my conviction at the time was just a little bit higher than theirs, and maybe I'd done just a little more research than them. But again, if you're here, if you're invested in this stuff, you're way ahead of the curve, and I appreciate you guys for swinging, and thank you for the kind words. Logan, what's up, man? He says, hey, Jake, just wanted to say thank you for all that your advice. How do you see the next few months going for crypto market? Up and to the right is how I see them going. With one maybe big, V-shaped recovery, but I do think that there's going to be, the majority is going to be up and to the right. We got Omar. What's up, man? He says, when will Codius integrate with XRPL, or is it just a DEX? If XRP settles derivatives and Codius runs smart contracts, where do Flare, XLR, XDC, and ETH fit in? Man, you got a lot of questions. This is all rolled in here. Why would R3 use XDC if XRP and Codius cover both needs? It's a good question. It's a robust question. So I'm going to try to bite it one piece at a time here. When I think after 2020, 2027, 2020, late 2026, 2027 is when we'll start to see use for derivatives. I think that you're going to need some other amendments passed on the XRPL before then, institutional adoption for other markets. You're going to need a lot of RWAs and tokenized real world assets before you can start building the derivatives. We talk about a lot of the stuff that we're doing, to be able to generate yield on some of these products and assets for our clients. And a lot of what we're doing to be able to trade their equity in some of these, options or strategies is a derivative, right? So you've got, what's Archax? Archax has hold on. I think I'm under NDA on that one. Never mind. Sorry. Anyway, there are people out there that are working on some of this stuff, and I just gave away who it was. There's some people, but anyway, a lot of the stuff that you mentioned here with XLR and XDC and ETH, that may be how they fit into that. You need interoperability between those networks. You need some smart contract platform that leverages the best of any of those to be able to run derivatives and settle that through XRP on the back end. And I think that's how all of that's going to work together. And R3 is going to route through whatever has the most liquidity and is easiest to settle. If XDC, and the smart contracts there are settling trade finance between counterparties, and XDC or XRP's institutional capital flows between stable coins and other tokenized real world assets, I think that's kind of the bifurcation of those two in that infrastructure and between the counterparties that are leveraging it. So hopefully that's a good enough answer for you, and I really do appreciate the super chat. We've got Group 1 Kevin again, man. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, time for a question. Did you see Mike Cagney's announcement, proposed IPO for Figure Markets? I sure did. Would this be something worth looking at? Rocking the red shirt too, bro. Appreciate it. Thank you, man. Well, my wife made the cool background, and she was like, "You need to wear a red shirt tonight." Like, all right, I'll wear it. Appreciate you on the flowers. Yeah, I had Mike on the show. Mike is brilliant. They're doing $750 million a month in mortgage-backed securities on chain already, which is incredible. Provenance is a big deal. Figure Markets is a big deal. I don't think people really understand, and I'm hopeful that they will actually aggregate a ton of that market in addition to the insurance business. They've got like $225 million worth of insurance policies tokenized on that chain, which is a separate product and solution that's being built out on top of Provenance. So again, I'll just say it this way. If you like the IPO for Figure Markets, I would buy more hash. I've bought hash. It is the native token for Provenance that would settle all of that value, right? So at scale, if they get the adoption that they want to, and it's on Provenance and settling all that through Figure Markets, they're going to be leveraging hash. And you can download Figure Markets. It's an exchange. And again, I'm going to say my disclaimer. This is not financial advice. If you lose all your money, if you invest all your money and it goes to zero, that was your choice. I'm just telling you about something I'm invested in that I thought was cool. Okay. So Mike Cagney, the reason that I ended up having him on the show was I did another video and talked about Provenance and hash, and I bought some. It's the only thing I've bought besides XRP in the past 3.5 years. I threw a couple grand at it because it's the only thing that reminds me of XDC. When I bought XDC, I had to go way around my butt to like download some stuff and buy some stuff over here and transfer it and then swap it. It's not quite that complicated with hash, but it is very low liquidity in the DEX. Very scarcely traded on exchanges. The only two that have it listed are Figure Markets and Osmosis, and you can buy it on there. So again, not promoting it. Please don't go out and buy it because I talked to you about it, but you should go do some research on it because similar to like Ripple and XRP, I think you could probably make the same correlation between Figure Markets and Mike Cagney and hash. That's what I'll say on it. Trying to get through all the super chats here before we wrap it up tonight. We got another 30 minutes or so, and then we're going to lock it down until Wednesday when we will be back for the next live. Logan says, congrats on the 100K. I'm military and don't make a lot with that, but how much would it cost to use Digital Ascension Group after significant appreciation on XRP? Again, thank you for the 100K, and thank you for being a subscriber that made that possible. And I haven't even said this. If you are getting value from this, please like and subscribe. It does help the algorithm. Please share this with somebody that you think would find value in it, and that does help the channel grow. And again, people have been nice enough to do that over the last 2 years, and we're at over 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So again, super blessed and humbled on that side. Thank you guys. Again, to work with the wealth management division, somewhere north of $500,000 in portfolio value, or 100,000 XRP, and then on the other side of the family office for other professional services, really any amount, somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 worth is where we set up a holding corporation or an LLC for people, and then kind of goes up from there. This person's asked, the Strawberry Man over here on TikTok says, I'm in Australia. How can Caleb and Brown help me with crypto, or do I stay as an individual? Caleb and Brown was just acquired recently, so kudos to them. Jake, I've had Jake on the podcast, and we talked about Caleb and Brown probably a year ago. So happy for him in that exit. I think they sold for around $60 million. So kudos to them. I don't know why they would be exiting right now. That's interesting to me. I feel like right now is the time to be making acquisitions. So maybe that's why SwiftX, it's a market share grab for them, or maybe they're looking for like a concierge white glove for their clients too, and they're adding that as a value add. Not sure the strategic positioning of that acquisition. I haven't done enough research on it to really see. But shout out to Jake and him for making some money. Kudos. I don't know also if they just sold the exchange and kept the fund because they had something separate where they were managing their own treasury there at Caleb and Brown. Caleb and Brown does have some pretty exorbitant fees. So they are 3.5% when you execute a transaction on there. Talking to Uphold earlier today about their OTC desk and Ascent, which is their platform. We'll see what could come of that. And then, Kraken Pro has some really good fees associated with that versus other platforms. If you're in Australia, though, I think there are some other exchanges, and we work with Australians, by the way. If you do have over 100,000 XRP and you have your assets in a family trust or a self-managed super fund, we can work with you. I will say this, our team is not quite, the knowledge base around international clients is not as in-depth as we have on US-based clients. But we do have outsourced counsel and other people in those jurisdictions that help us manage those accounts. So like Consensus Layer out there in Australia will help you form your family trust and do the accounting and the taxation, mitigating taxes and tax planning. We work with David and his team out there. And then we also have Tax on Chain, which is another partner of ours in Australia. So again, good people out there. We actually don't have any referral, like anything between the two and us. We just want good people that actually know what they're doing to be able to provide resources for our clients. So if you know some good people wherever you are in the world, and they would be resources for the community at scale for the XRP family, please don't hesitate to reach out and pass those along. We would love to have more people to refer clients to and make sure that people get taken care of. Ur says, what's up, Jake? What's up, man? He says, do you know the director of digital assets is on the speaking list for Ripple Swell 2025 at BlackRock? Yeah. What do you think that means for XRP? There was a lot of speakers from BlackRock as well. I guess we'll see. I'll be there. Thank you for the super chat. We got Prod. He says, wow, XLM at 1,000 is really bullish. What can push it to that price? Look, man, we've talked to Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, all of the payment processors for merchant services, Stripe, I haven't actually talked to Stripe, but I know some people at Stripe. So peer-to-peer payments, merchant services, that's where they're going to get the payment flows and the value to be able to push it to those levels. Stable coins issued on XLM, like USDC and others, settling on Hyperledger, like Hyperledger Fabric is pretty much what the majority of the retail or consumer-facing products and banks use and are integrated with to be able to settle value and payments on blockchain. And that requires XLM. So all that payment volume, I do think that eventually we will see ETFs for XLM, HBAR, and Algorand. And I think the ETFs are going to be the way after they've done it with, they've already been successful with Bitcoin, funneling liquidity into Bitcoin. I think that they will do it again with XRP. And I think that that will kind of be the play. So when you see some of these ETFs, and again, like if they make it where they just get passed and they don't have to apply for each individual one, it could happen much faster than, a lot of people might anticipate. El Jefe, what's up, man? He says, Jake, I believe August 15th is the deadline for the SEC appeal with the Ripple case. Do you believe we will see finally all come to an end by that date? I kind of do. I think August 15th, I think this month is going to be really good. I'm really excited for August. I'm a Leo. If you guys didn't know, like I said, I'll be up in New York on my birthday speaking on the panel. So I'm always bullish on August, but this August, I'm particularly bullish. I think that there's going to be a lot of good things happen in digital assets this month. We got Nathan. What's up, man? He says, do you think $100 XRP by the end of the year is reasonable? And your thoughts on Proton? Why'd you ask me about Proton? I don't like talking bad about people, so I'm not going to. It's not anything that I would. We talked to them very early on. Marshall in Spaces on Twitter has always blocked people that questioned anything. After dealing with John at Bank Social, I don't think they're even going to get the credit unions. Anybody can pay to be listed on the FedNow sponsor sheet. It's like a couple $1,000. So the whole network has like $1.4 million worth of liquidity in the DEX. So it's one or the other. It's a sleeping giant or it's a nothing burger. And for me, the use case of low value payments, like I just talked about for XLM, like it's already cornered the market there. I don't see what value Proton's going to bring beyond anything else. And look, maybe it's better. But I'll tell you this, sometimes better technologies don't win out. A lot of the time it's first mover advantage. And people that solve things in an innovative way that are backed by the government. Like I said it, there you go. The government chooses the winners. And from what I can tell, that one's not chosen based on the conversations I've had. So we'll see. Again, I would love to be wrong. I would love people to make a ton of money on Proton. Just not my cup of tea. Now, $100 XRP by the end of the year, I think it could be, again, it's predicated on events. There's a lot of things that need to play out for that to happen. But I wouldn't have made a bet with scams that XRP would be $750 by the end of the year if I didn't think that that was true. So, I think we've already been over that one. I'll go ahead and scroll on down here. I'm probably going to miss some super chats. We're going to work back up from the bottom. For those that missed it and may still be wondering, I'm going to post this up here. Liners was nice enough. Liners is in the mastermind, and Liners is awesome. Liners has the best memes of anybody I've ever seen. My wife is really good at the memes, but I think Liners even beats my wife on the memes. So if you do need that LLC and you do want the code, here it is one more time for you. It is 50 off DAG LLC, and right there is the link. It's at digitalfamilyoffice.io/services/LLC entity formation over here on YouTube. If you need it over here on TikTok, I think my wife might be in the comments poking around and she can get it for you guys as well. if you do want to make sure that you are set up for success on the front end of price appreciation. We got Andrew. He says another 50K promotion. Can't do it, man. Unfortunately, with compliance, we've already run that 3 times, and I got my hand slapped the last time that we did it. They were like, you can't keep doing this. We're gonna have to keep the minimums, or we got to lower everything for everybody. And I'm like, okay, all right, we won't do another one. I'm sorry. So we got a lot of people in. We took care of a lot of people, and I apologize if you missed it early on. And I will say this: we always take care of people that are here with us early on through everything that we do. If you are going to get any additional, specials or anything, it's going to be through the mastermind. Omar, he says, laugh out loud. I know the answer to my question. Sorry, man. I've been here too long. Just wanted to see if you actually know, and you do. I appreciate that. Yeah, sometimes I let things slip. I shouldn't. I apologize. Silverado, man, the Chevy. That's what I'm talking about, dude. Can you read my super chat from earlier? I will come back up here and find it. Let me scroll up here. We got the office. I didn't tell you guys that. Finally we're gonna get moved in here this week, and so look, not everybody can come to the office at one time. We will be taking appointments in person here in Dallas at the office for select clients. We are right next to family offices and other wealth managers inside of a large building off of 75 by SMU. So if you do book a consult with our group and you are here in Dallas, you're going to fly in. We do have an office location to meet people at now. That is very nice. So happy to do that. I'm still digging through here, Silverado, man. If I can find that super chat, I will absolutely answer it. And I apologize, I missed it earlier. I wish you would have copy pasted it. I'm sorry. This person said he thought he was going deaf earlier when I had my sound off at the beginning. He's funny. Appreciate you on the super chat, man. KK Pond. Come on, Silverado, man. Where you at? No, that's George. Rob, Wayne, and KK Pond. Silver Spot, Rare Pokemon. Wish there was a search button in here. There's got to be some way to do that. All right. Well, I'm going to try to find it. Silverado, man. If I don't get to it, just ping me over there in Discord. And again, if you're a part of the mastermind, I will absolutely answer your questions over there. And again, I always apologize if I miss a super chat. It does happen. It's infrequent, but or my wife will print it out if you message us on social media, and she will put it on my desk here, and I will read it on Wednesday night for you, my man. Trying to get through the last little bit of these. We got Danny. He says, been catching up on your videos. Great stuff. Thank you, brother. Been in XRP right now. But with XRP right now, how are the macroeconomics indicator with it looking to September when we'll hit big wall, maybe early 26? So a lot of people are looking at the Clarity Act. We don't need the Clarity Act for XRP. You got stable coins. You already have XRP, not a security, based on the regulations here in the US, the ruling by the judge. We could see price appreciation long before the Clarity Act actually gets invoked. And I would actually bet that we do, because I think they want to give XRP, XLM, and a few others a moat, because those are where stable coins are going to be issued. We got gracias por tus consejos. Thanks for your work. Trabajo, my trabajo. Poquito español, but mucho poquito. If you drop me in the middle of Mexico, I could get home. George, what's up, man? He says, I'm BLK. Not sure what the acronym is. I'm sure that doesn't matter, but I've trying to convince my close friends that family XRP that could be life changing. Any tips because they just don't believe. I'm not sure what be okay means, but look, man, like everybody has whatever they have going on in their life, and they're younger, older, uneducated, too educated. Like you make up whatever excuse you want. People are going to listen to you. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they aren't. If you know what you're talking about, people will listen. And if they don't, they'll find out later when you're right, and they'll believe you next time. So again, this is kind of one of those. I would go check out the video and Google how Jake Claver explains XRP to high net worth individuals. And I'm going to give you, you can share that video with them. I think that those examples that I give in that video are very relatable for the average person, and would explain to them why these networks and protocols matter and how they're going to be able to aggregate and grow in value to the level that you and I both know that they will be. We got Victor. He says, thank you for all your content. I learned so much. Thank you, man. Thank you for watching and taking the time and the support. He says, Jake, in your view, what is the most overlooked factor that could trigger a parabolic move in XRP's value once institutional adoption of tokenized assets goes mainstream? Most underlooked factor. Well, I can tell you there's a lot of FUD about XRP out there. People think that, Ripple owns all of it and they can just dump it onto the market anytime, and they're a centralized authority on the network and it's not decentralized and they can make more of it. And like, there's so many like things that I've heard over the years. But if you actually just take any amount of time to do the research on it, you realize all those are falsehoods. And that the people that are telling you that either heard it from somebody else and they just repeated it, or they're actively don't want XRP to succeed for some reason. So the overlooked factor would be that it really is what you think it is. I spent a year and a half trying to figure out how I was wrong and talk to people. And now I've been in, more rooms and situations and conversations that have just affirmed that it really is what you think it is. And probably more than we even realize. So Brad has that poster with the monkey wearing the sign that people make fun of, and it says XRP will rule the world. I believe him. You wouldn't hang that on your wall if you didn't, So anyway, I think that's most people they have a hard time. They think it's too good to be true. They think it's outrageous. They think that can't happen to them, but it can, man, and it will if you're able to, hold on. This person says, "Hey Jake, what happens when XRP price pumps and you take a loan against it, and while you're paying off the loan, the price goes down? You could get liquidated. We had, some margin calls this weekend from people that have borrowed against their XRP. Nobody lost their XRP because it recovered. And here's the other piece: the people that we work with on the loans are much more understanding than just a DeFi protocol. A DeFi protocol will liquidate your stuff. We have actual counterparties that want to work with us and do good business, and they're willing to ride it out with you and make sure that everything's kosher, but they will, sell off assets if it gets to a certain point. So they mitigate that risk, but at the same time, they're going to walk with you in faith and make sure that, you don't lose your XRP, which is very different than a DeFi protocol. So I would say if you're using Aave or Compound, forget about it. You're just going to lose your assets if it drops like that. But if you're using our partners, you're going to have a much better experience through Digital Wealth Partners. Or if you're in the Mastermind, we also have counterparties in the Mastermind to be able to, get access to that as well. We got Melissa. Hey, ma'am. She says, hey, Jake, I opened the LLC with your company and had my first call with Laughlin. Very cool. Still not sure if it's okay to transfer the crypto entity that is on an exchange account with my spouse to the LLC that is under my name. It is. Especially, I would just put in ChatGPT and see what the spousal rights are in your state. Most property that you purchased during your marriage is community property. Pretty much, it's hard to separate it out. There's a few states where you get some separation, but for the majority of the time, you have very strong spousal rights in most states in the United States, and it should not be an issue to transfer that in there. You guys are pretty much one person in the eyes of the IRS, and that's why you're able to file jointly on taxes and all the other stuff that you do. You may even qualify for a QJV, or qualified joint venture, if you're in California or a few other states. Omar, he says, just curious with ETH, how ETH with Jake Clayton, Bill Hinman, not the Good Old Boys Club token XRP will be. Guess it sucks that bad. Look, Jay and the team, they play their part, okay? People want there to be good and bad people. People like a story. People want a narrative. And people play roles. Sometimes people play the bad guy. Michael Saylor, he's a fall guy. He was in the .com era, and I feel like he's probably going to play that role again here. Gare Bear, who is the chairman of the SEC for the past 4 years during the Biden administration, played his role. When I don't know if you guys were here for this in 2020, everybody was excited when Gary was coming in because he taught all the courses at MIT. He knows what this stuff is. And for him to act the way that he did while he was in that position is very much out of character, unless he's playing his role. If you needed to orchestrate something for a lawsuit to happen with XRP, and other people knew that they could benefit for 4 or 5, 6 years off of these other networks and make a bunch of money, including JP Morgan and some of the other people, they would do that. And like, it's definitely not all orchestrated, but there are people behind the scenes that pull strings to make stuff happen, and they put people in strategic places to accomplish those goals. And sometimes that aligns with their long-term objectives, and it plays and fits in nicely. Sometimes it's some leverage, and it's a get-out-of-jail-free card. I've talked about old Gare Bear before. He signed the Steele dossier with the Clintons. I don't know, but maybe they said, hey, everybody's going to hate you, but we need you to play this role. Your ex-wife's investment account's going to have a ton of money when you get out of the SEC. And you'll be able to ride off into the sunset and retire without any blemishes on your record, if you do this. If you don't, go to prison. Probably going to play my role, play my part. And again, you know, you see this in Hollywood, you see this in politics, you see it across the board. When somebody has leverage against somebody else and there's a switch and a carrot, probably going to choose the carrot. So again, you just kind of zoom out and look at how the world works on stuff. There's definitely a Good Old Boys Club, and there's definitely a narrative and people. But at the same time, I do think there's been strategic placement of certain individuals doing certain things at certain times to orchestrate a specific outcome that was needed for things to play out the way that they did. Michael, what's your price prediction on XRP by the end of 2025? Literally have a bet on $750. So we'll see if I lose that one or what happens. And then we've already got this one here. So I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. If I got one more super chat, I will take it. We got a couple more here, and then we're going to log off for tonight. We got Lenny. He says, I love your videos, and I'm super excited about XRP's future. I have a good amount. Good for you, dude. And thank you for the super chat. How much money should I hold, I'm assuming hold, to have before working with your company? Again, you know, 100,000 XRP is our minimum currently on the wealth management side, and then or at least $500,000 in total portfolio value. As prices escalate here, we'll probably move that up to 20 million for anybody that's not inside the mastermind. So again, you know, additional benefits. You can use the code up here. Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you discount. It's 2 months, or sorry, $2 for the first month there in the community. Not free anymore. We had a lot of people take advantage of the free offer at the end of last month. It's now $2. to get going, and would love to see you in there. We got Jay. He says, legend, big fan, appreciate the wealth knowledge. I'm new to the mastermind. Crypto Joe, what's up, man? Love it so far. I've taken advantage of the LLC setup with Laughlin Group. Would love to hear you quickly explain the reverse carry trade. Yeah, absolutely. So over the last 20 years, the Bank of Japan has had extremely low interest rates, sometimes zero and negative. They would pay you to borrow money, which seems crazy. But when you're in stagflation and you need your economy to grow, you pretty much grasp at straws and do anything you can to get people to borrow money and spend it in your economy. So because of that, a lot of large pension funds, hedge funds, anybody that had good credit and a large stature went to the Bank of Japan and borrowed yen, swapped that for dollars or whatever other currency, and put that to work in global markets across the world. Basically free money that they got that they could then earn, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20% on, depending on their strategy and where they parked it. And now that the interest rates have continued to rise there in Japan, a lot of those notes have to be refinanced. And some of those trades that made sense when they had low interest rates are starting to not make sense now as market dynamics have shifted and currency rate and exchange rates are changing, and the interest on those loans have risen substantially. So with that, a year ago tomorrow, we saw 13% down in the S&P 500 because the reverse carry trade started to unwind. And that will happen again. There will be a global credit call across all markets and a liquidity crisis. So, don't be caught with your pants down. Hopefully you guys aren't leveraged up, but hopefully you're in the right assets and positioned well. And again, if you do want to make sure that you are taking full advantage of this price appreciation and position yourself correctly, you can work with us, or you can, get your own LLC. I told you all the stuff that you need to know a little bit earlier. We got videos on it. But if you do want to work with us and get the best deal that I'm aware of that's out there, $2,000 all in, everything end to end you could possibly want for setting up your corporation. Here's the code one last time. It is 50 off 50 OFF DAG LLC. That's 50 OFF DAG LLC. And again, we'll continue to run additional specials for people there in the mastermind, even on the other side of price appreciation. So if you want to get in that group and make sure that you're positioned there, we got, like Denny said, over 5,500 members there in the Discord. Over 6,000 people have actually signed up and haven't quite connected to the Discord yet. So if that sounds something like it's something that you would get value with, and I guarantee you that you will, if you get in there and listen to the calls and consume everything and powwow with everybody that's there, you can use the code Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you everything for the first month for $2 to try it out. And if you don't like it any time, it's month to month, no contract, cancel. But obviously for 5,500 people to be there and pay the month to month deal, it's got to be pretty good. And again, we have a ton of value there. It's more value than I've ever had in any other mastermind community I've been a part of. And I made it that way on purpose. I always want people to feel like they would pay way more for whatever it is the service we're providing. So, and then last but not least, if you do have, your LLC or your trust, your IRA, and you have over 100,000 XRP, over $500,000, and you want access to yield, lines of credit, advisory, institutional custody, insurance on your assets, the ability to add your spouse and your kids to the account, just like a Schwab account for your crypto. You can reach out to Digital Wealth Partners at digitalwealthpartners.net and go to the contact us form there. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, a wonderful night, and we will see you guys on Wednesday.